Welcome into another Red Out podcast.
Hey, how about them tops, son?
All day, SEC boys. SEC, they supposed to be SEC. Where's the other, baby?
You're listening to the Red Out Podcast.
What's up, Jared? Can you hear me, bud?
Yeah, I can. How's it going?
Good. I don't really have a fade button on this. I really wish I could fade the music down. But, you know, what are you going to do, right?
I mean, I can send you a new one that has a fade in it naturally if you want.
Nah, it's all good. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
There we go. Just trying to get your volume turned up for me just a little bit. And me and my hearing is not as good as it used to be.
Yeah, that's all good.
No, it's all good. So I guess we'll start like always, winners and losers. Who do you got, Jared?
Okay, so I guess winner, we won't be able to figure it out today, but it should be Matt McCay the next time he's on because I finally got him to get his Podbean figured out. What I did is I went on my own personal account and did a live show and had him call into it, and it worked. But what happened is that he didn't allow access to his microphone. The first time that you call in, you're supposed to hit yes to allow access to the microphone, and he just didn't do that. But he hit it now, and it sounded crystal clear, so he should be good for the next time.
So winner Matt, next time we can get him on the podcast.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. As far as losers go, I have to go WKU's football page on Twitter because they had this post talking about Bailey Zappi and the Stern brothers, like all of the Houston Baptist people, basically talking about something with Texas. But instead of the Texas flag, they used the Chilean flag.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there is a difference. There's not a flag for Texas. There's none of the state flags on the little emoji things. And I'm just like, if you know that, then just don't do it. And the thing that's really sad, too, is someone commented in the replies how it was the Chilean flag and comparing it, and they hid the comment. And I'm just like, y'all are soft. You can't take any criticism whatsoever. If you don't do something stupid, then we won't have to call you out on it. But, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid.
I know. I mean, I know they may be trying to be funny or trying to be hip, like all the cool kids using the emojis and all that stuff. So, I mean,
you sounded just like Matt.
Basically, because that's how the WKU admin people, as far as social media, are. They're about the most vanilla, basic, out of touch people on the internet as possible. They need someone that's fresh out of college, that knows meme culture and how to make tweets go viral, and then suddenly we could have tons more followers on Twitter, just because we have funny tweets. There are literally accounts that are just like that in sports.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it would be like my dad trying to have a social media account. That's what I feel like is going on right now.
Basically,
it's just ridiculous. I guess my loser is our next opponent after this, Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
Falling from grace, losing that number 17 spot, which I just don't buy into that preseason, you know? You've got to have some wins under your belt before I'm like, okay, this number 17 is pretty stuff.
That's based more after what they did last year than it is what they did this season, because they did really good in the Big Ten. I mean, granted, it was a COVID year, but they were ranked at the end of the season. They did really well, and they still returned a lot of that. But goodness, I mean, Iowa just did not give them a chance to do anything at all. And if Cincinnati does the same thing, then they're definitely not going to be ranked. I mean, if they beat Cincinnati, they might be maybe in the 20s, maybe in high teens again. But I mean, it's still going to be a good atmosphere when we play them, regardless. Having a Big Ten team like them, it'll still be a big deal. So, yeah. I mean, I'm still looking forward to it. It'll be hopefully a closer game than some people were anticipating.
Well, I mean, they've lost their rank now, obviously, but they're going to be a tough opponent. Don't get me wrong. I think they'll be a tough opponent for Western. And it'll be fun coming into the Houch for Western people. Show up and show out as far as that goes. And, you know, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but you know, Iowa and Cincinnati, those are tough teams in the Big Ten. Those are teams that typically have, you know, fairly good teams. Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's in the American though.
Well, I was going to say Cincinnati. They're not as strong of a team in the American, but they are still a decent team.
They're ranked pretty high. At least I don't know if they won Saturday. I didn't get to see every single score. I was on the road. I was driving in Indianapolis. Had to go up there.
Let me see here. I'm pull up Cincinnati real quick, see what their score was. They played Miami, Ohio, and they won. Definitely 49-14.
Yeah.
And they play Murray this week.
Oh boy, that'll be a barn burner.
Oh, and then they've got IU on the 18th, and we've got them on the 25th. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't registering the bye week this week. I'm just next week, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry, I got to call out IU on their loss. But Cincinnati, I think that'll be a pretty good game for Indiana anyway. And hopefully that'll give us some openings and see, what's going on and what we can do to them. And, maybe there's something on film that we can see that maybe we can exploit.
Yeah, hopefully.
So, sorry, I'm pulling out my script here so I can see what we're going to do next. Sorry. So anyway, do you have any other winners and losers?
I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, we can kind of go ahead and look at Conference USA, like how they did in their first week.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, UTSA, they were probably the biggest winner in Conference USA. They beat Illinois.
Oh, wow.
It's one orange and navy team beating another orange and navy team. But, I mean, that's still always good whenever Conference USA gets a Power 5 win. I mean, Rice, they were hanging in there with Arkansas for a while. But second half, they just didn't show up at all and lost. Louisiana Tech, they almost beat Mississippi State. They were getting beat pretty big at halftime, and they actually made it a ball game, and they got so close. But, of course, like as our Law Tech counterpart blogs, Go Tech, Please Don't Die, say, they always say Tech is going to Tech. So they ended up fumbling that.
Tech is going to Tech.
Yeah.
That's a very good Western one too, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Marshall, they beat Navy. That was a pretty convincing win. I mean, the 103rd are going to be pretty difficult at the end of the season. I can already tell. Let's see. Thankfully, there weren't any super big embarrassing losses. Although Southern Miss, God, they've fallen off so bad. Like, they got beat pretty bad in their first game, and it wasn't a very good opponent either. I can't even remember who it was. But, yeah, MTSU actually won big against some small school from – it was Monmouth, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I take that with a grain of salt. I mean, that doesn't show me anything. I mean, and even with us, I mean, we'll recap it here in a little bit.
Well,
go ahead.
I just pulled up the Monmouth. I'm going to say Monmouth.
Yeah.
I pulled up the Monmouth stats against MTSU. Of course, MTSU threw up 50 points, but they only had 360 yards, and they let Monmouth have 274.
Mm-hmm.
Monmouth had the ball for 33, almost 34 minutes.
Jeez.
And they had 17 first downs, but what killed Monmouth is they had 4 turnovers.
See, I wish I could call them Mothman so bad. That'd be such a better university. Mothman University.
Yes. Hey, they should be the Monmouth Mothmans. That'd be
literally no one would be able to pronounce that. No one.
Good, I'm not the only one.
I couldn't either.
No, I would get tongue tied every time, and I would honestly feel sorry for the play-by-play guys.
Yeah. So we have
the Monmouth Mothmans.
Yeah.
But no, I mean that's it's kind of like our win. And I don't want to be negative about our win, but you got to take it with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've got to see that it's going to be a little inflated compared to the other competition we're going to face this year.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like Wake Forest thumped Old Dominion 42-10.
That's not surprising.
No.
Also, the biggest one was Charlotte beating Duke. That was a pretty impressive win for them to be able to get that in-state win against a Power 5 team that's blue and white that has UK in their name.
Well, I mean, it's Duke football though. I mean, like,
Well, I mean, you can say the same thing when we play Kentucky. Is Kentucky
yeah,
football?
I'll give you that. I'll give you that one.
So I mean, it's
'Cause-
still always good whenever we see another conference team, Conference USA team, beat a Power Five team, and they did. They did what they had to do. I mean, Will Healy, if they have a successful season this year, he's for sure gone. He'll be
Oh,
the hot
definitely.
item for some Power Five team, probably
Yes.
Nebraska, because Nebraska is terrible.
And Nebraska's been terrible for what, 20, 30 years now, though.
It's been a long time.
It's like Matt might make the show.
Let's see. I want to
We'll
see
see.
if this mic works.
We'll see if he can make it. Let me see. I'll send an invite to him. But anyway, but no, we're talking Conference USA. How has UTEP already played 2 games?
Yeah, so they played like New Mexico State, I think, and then maybe some like FCS
Yes.
school.
They
But, I
played
mean,
New Mexico State on the 28th of August. Okay, so that's what it was. And then they played BCU.
and they won both of those, didn't they?
Yes.
UTEP
They
is
won.
back.
Yeah, UTEP's back 30-3 and 38-28. So, I mean, they at least score 30, about 35 points.
I mean, at least they're winning. I mean, technically, they're winning the whole conference right now because they're 2-0, and they're the
Yeah.
only ones that have played that many games. So, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
technically, they're the best team right now.
Yeah, UTEP's dominating. You heard it here first, guys. UTEP
Yes.
is dominating Conference USA West.
Miners are back.
You said La Tech, Rice, Southern Miss. Yeah, I mean, it's a first game, so I mean, some of those are kind of expected though.
But
Some of these
Southern
teams-
Miss, though, like they were used to be so good. That was who we played in our first conference title game.
Yeah,
I mean, but who did they lose to? They lost to somebody.
Southern Alabama,
Yeah, that's not good.
which that's Sunbelt,
not
right?
good. Yeah, if it was like Appalachian State or Coastal in the Sun Belt, I'd be like, okay, maybe I understand that. But South
Or
Alabama, come
Georgia
on.
State, yeah.
I don't want to talk about that.
No joke though. Like some of these games, though, you have to take with a grain of salt. I keep saying that, but some of these games are play games where they're going to get paid to play the big guys, and it's more based off the money to help the team throughout the season than it is to actually win the first game.
Mhm.
Western and Middle and some of these others, yeah, that's what they got. They didn't get pay me games, but they played FCS opponents. And for the first time in, 3 years now, we've actually beaten them.
Well, I mean, we technically beat Chattanooga last season, but that felt like a loss to me, just for the fact that
It was too close.
we shouldn't have won that game. Like when I was doing some research on our FCS opponents to do my assessing the adversary thing that Jake used to do. Like I went to Chattanooga football's Wikipedia page for last season, and they had this entire segment on Western talking about how there was a call that shouldn't have happened that basically made it to where we won the game. Hey, we have Matt, I think.
Yes, we have Matt. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jared. You're fine. Finish your thought.
Oh, that was basically it.
I always enjoyed Jake's pieces when he would do the was it assessing the enemy or whatever he called it. I always
How's he
enjoyed
doing?
that.
I haven't even heard anything
Oh
out
my
of
gosh.
him in a while.
He's good. He's got a little 2-year-old girl, and he's infatuated, and I don't blame him. I'm kind of the same way. Well, I think his daughter's 2.5. I think she's a little bit older than my daughter, so I don't do the only thing I do birthdays on is Facebook. So that's the only reason I keep up with some people's birthdays.
Understandable.
And our anniversaries are the same way. So Matt,
Yes, sir.
do you want to talk about what did you think about Conference USA in week 1?
I thought it was a pretty good week. Yeah,
Good.
I mean, like Jared was saying, there were some quality wins, and at least most of them showed up and did well or represented the conference well. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good week for sure.
Yep, some of them pulled their weight, some of them didn't, but that's okay.
That sounds like Conference USA to me.
Yeah.
So looking at Western a little more closely, women's soccer beat Louisville. I'm trying to see if I missed any others in the meantime. But volleyball U is showing up. Women's volleyball beat Wake Forest. 3-0, by the way.
I
And
told y'all we should be the favorites. They just swept them.
Yeah.
Kansas too.
I knew if we beat Kansas, we were going to beat Wake Forest. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was just one of those. It was like, well, if they do this, then they're going to do that for sure. But it's one of those that they have the name Kansas, and you just kind of go, ooh.
Yeah.
But it's nothing. I mean, I guess
It's like playing Kansas in football. It's just like,
Which my favorite story is the Baker Mayfield when he played Kansas and Kansas disrespected him at the coin toss. Like, how stupid are you? Like, that's the stupidest thing you could have done. Like, you know, it's
You're
like
Kansas.
Yeah, you're
playing with
Kansas.
fire.
Yeah. You bring the basketball team out, then we'll talk about that. So yeah, women's fall sports are doing well. Let's see here. Trying to check and see what we've got since last Thursday.
I mean, little fun fact. I mean, Western as a university is undefeated so far.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we haven't lost anything. That's great.
Yeah,
No.
6-0 volleyball, 3-0
Stansberry better not
soccer.
ruin it, dadgummit.
Come on,
dismissing
Stan.
Tavion.
Oh Lord.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, let's look back at UT Martin. I know we're kind of skipping ahead pretty quick tonight, but
No, it's fine.
it's just not a lot of sports to talk about.
There's a lot of previews for football too.
Yes. So, I was pretty pleased from what I saw in the Zap Attack. But like I said earlier, it's kind of one of those that I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I enjoyed his picking apart of UT Martin. He had one throw, and it's one of those that you're like, yep. It was one of those throws that as soon as he let it go, you're like, I bet you wanted that one back, didn't you? Mm-hmm. That one interception. But and Robicho, he really didn't do anything last year, did he? Or is he a transfer?
Let's see.
I'm trying to look up Robicho here, but
yeah, I'm not really sure.
Georgia. Let's see.
It's first
He's
year.
A freshman. True freshman.
Yeah. He's
okay.
True freshman too.
Know that.
Yeah, true freshman. 9 attempts, 44 yards here. Yeah, I mean that's
wow.
I was
one position. Running back was always one that if they're pretty good, they can come in straight away and contribute.
Yes,
they don't have to do much to get on.
And he really doesn't. As far as it didn't look like he had to come in and get a lot of muscle mass either, because he's according to ESPN's. Yeah, my daughter's in that screaming face. So sorry. Kai Robicho is 6 foot, 215 pounds from Columbus, Georgia.
That's a good, solid freshman body.
I agree, and Matt and I know this. Some of you don't. Bobby Brainey was like what 5'5".
Yeah,
he was short.
Yeah. Hey, give the man some credit, man. He's 5'7", 5'8".
Oh my god, I love it.
Impeccable.
But Robicho showed up for Western on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. 9 carries, 44 yards. And that game is on the Hilltopper Vault. So if y'all missed it, want to watch it again, go right ahead. Yes. Zap did great. He spread the ball out. It wasn't just one receiver. And the funny thing for me was I was watching it, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, you know what? He is favoring receivers. He's not really thrown to a tight end. And I'll be damned, he threw to Josh Simon, right? The next play. And I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. That's cool. So it was good to see Simon get the ball, get that touchdown there too. Jared, what were your thoughts?
Well, I didn't get to see much of it live. I had to work. I was able to catch like the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. I got to see Baker's touchdown, which let's talk about the fact he comes into the game in garbage minutes.
Yes.
Throws one pass, one touchdown. I'm just like, man, maybe this is the answer. Maybe we don't even need Zappy at all. We just need
bench Zappy.
I'm sure there's somebody else.
Terrible.
thinking that.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
But I mean, just looking at Zappy, I think he was like 28 for 35, 464 yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, that's the kind of production we've been wanting to see at a quarterback position since Mike White left, honestly. I mean, Duncan, I mean, he may have had a game or two where he would get like close to 300 or something like that. But just those astronomical numbers that look like they were in one of Jacob's simulation games on NCAA 14 is what we're going for.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, like 59-21 is kind of one of those that you just go pretty dominant. I'll take it. There are some names that I am familiar with on our rushing. There are more names that I'm not familiar with. Robicho is one of those. Cofield, he's a senior.
That's the starter.
He's from North Dakota State.
Okay, so he's a transfer. Okay.
Yeah, he was a
Jakarta
starter.
Moses is another one I'm familiar with. He's
Yeah.
a sophomore.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it feels like he's been here forever.
That's what I thought too. I was like, he's got to be like a junior, but
Mhm.
but he took the medical red shirt, I think.
And then they had the invisible year last year that doesn't count.
There you go. Yeah,
So,
I
he's
wasn't
been
even
here-
thinking about
this
that.
is, What, 4th year?
Probably, but hey, you know what?
Dowdy could have been an 8th-year senior if he had a COVID season.
You know what? I think Brandon Dowdy would have taken that COVID year
Oh,
too.
he would have for sure.
Definitely.
Have a PhD by the time he leaves campus.
Okay, now this last name, I'm not going to pronounce the first one because I think I'll screw it up. But Corley, is it Malachi?
Dude, read the
Malachi?
Bible.
I read the Bible, but it's not. That doesn't look like Malachi. It looks like Malachi. I'll give you Malachi.
Okay.
Malachi Corley.
Whatever, man.
Dude,
Oh,
I love these
Devin.
guys and they're doing great. But like, okay, here we go. Receiving, Jareth Stearns. He's our top man this week. 7 receptions, 107 yards.
Stud.
Dawood Davis, Joshua Simon. He had 3 catches, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Y'all did hear he's injured, right?
Yeah.
Is he
I
really?
didn't know if y'all were going to talk about that. I got to hop off here in a few minutes, but yeah.
What
he's-
happened to him?
He had some. It was, I think it was on the second touchdown he scored. He kind of came up gimpy, some kind of lower leg type thing.
Ankle,
They
maybe.
hadn't
Maybe
really
it's.
come out and said,
Hopefully, it wasn't anything major then.
yeah,
And
but he definitely was a little gimpy, and he didn't.
Well, the
come
bad
back
thing
in.
is you won't get an injury report, so
Right.
you're not going to see who's on the injured reserve or any of that stuff.
Mhm.
But anyway, Matt, what was your thoughts on Thursday's game?
Well, I mean, obviously it's against UT Martin, so you can't just
You
call
can't
it
just go,
for
"Oh my
gospel.
God, it's amazing!"
Yeah, but what I look at a lot is what are outliers, whether it's statistically or whatever, something that hasn't happened in a long time. Well, 59 points hasn't happened since 2016,
Wow.
which is crazy that we haven't
Yeah.
even come close. I don't think we had more than 45 since 2016.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So yeah, whether that was 1AA, whatever. I mean, heck, we lost a couple of them since 2016. So that's something that stood out to me. The 424 yards passing hadn't happened in a while. I think what's his name? Ty Story had some that were close to that. The completion percentage, 80%, first time since Ty Story. So if you just look at Zappy, he set some trends back towards okay, we at least need to pay attention to him like he could be somebody like Mike White or Brandon Dowdy. And the 7 touchdowns, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I'm concerned about the running game, concerned about the defense a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
And that's kind of what I was thinking too. I wish they would have held UT Martin a little bit more on defense, but
yeah,
I guess it's one of those that it's like, hey, we're beating them by how much ever. Let's put our second string in. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the first drive, maybe they were just napping or something. I don't know, but that's 75 yards right there. So if you take that away, it was really, a low 300s performance.
Yeah,
And then you
321.
throw in some garbage time. Really, in between the first drive and garbage time, they were really good. It's just those really fudged the numbers, and
Yeah,
you still kind of got to count the yardage. I mean, it was still almost 400 yards.
yeah.
So-
I could see. But it's still concerning when you get 400 yards against you. But on the flip side, if we've got a Jeff Brom kind of style offense going here, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to keep scoring 60 points a game, then defense be damned. I mean,
True that.
but I, it still doesn't help us that we had a turnover. Got to limit our turnovers. That was one of those throws that he should have aimed at the outside shoulder and thrown over and kind of let him run for it. But hindsight's 2020. So quickly, Matt, I don't know how much time you've got left, but you want to talk about Army a little bit?
Yeah, so I definitely, first of all, after UT Martin, I was pretty excited. And then I watched Army on Saturday. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to die.
Yeah.
But I mean, seriously, Army, I didn't realize how good they are. They're very good.
Yes.
They were number one defense last year. They're returning a bunch of people. They got 3 quarterbacks they can play. So they run that like brutal triple option where the quarterback you would think gets beat up. Well, they play 3 of them. So he's not going to be tired. They can throw. So I was really impressed with them, to say the least. They
throw
out
like
Georgia
one
State.
time.
Go ahead, man.
But that one time gets you off guard, and it's a touchdown, just like it was last week.
I mean, they were like 2 for, they threw 2 touchdowns, only threw it like 3 or 4 times, So
yeah.
But my key.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I probably just need to like say my piece and then get off. But
no, do you think?
Yeah, man. But I don't want to be rude. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Devin.
You're right, bud.
But anyway, I think to me, I was looking at everything, and I really feel like, it's a tough matchup for Army. We do really well against the service academies. I think we've got a pretty good formula to stop them. I think D'Angelo Malone is going to be interesting to see how they use him. Because what they've done in the past is they've kind of used him like a rover, basically. Like he just kind of follows wherever the ball's going.
Yeah.
And he kind of cleans up all the messes. And I think we need really good defensive tackle presence to stop the dive. So I'm hoping Jeremy Darvin looks really good, and Will Ignat. I don't know.
Don't make fun of me now. Shoes on the other foot, bud.
Yeah, bro. Well, Will gonna get Ignat. No, but I think he's a pretty good key because he's kind of like a Power 5 talent that showed up last week. And I think if hopefully he can have a good game, and maybe he might be able to help Malone not have to be that rover that he's just kind of cleaning up messes. Maybe Malone can be more of a defensive end. But anyway, I'm thinking that, a key number is if Western can get to 20. Army is 3-9 when they give up 20 or more points in the last 2.5 seasons. So I think that's a key number. And when I think about it, surely we can get to 21, But obviously I think the key is, can the defense be decent enough to slow them down, get them off the field? If you can't stop the run, you're not going to stop Army. So I'm really concerned. Another little thing that didn't show up, probably wouldn't show up when you're looking at stats, is Army fumbled. It was the most bizarre sequence. And then I'll shut up and let y'all take over. But it was bizarre. It was Georgia State. They were snapping the ball. They kick it off. Army, it hits the Army guy in the butt. Georgia State recovers. They call a holding on Georgia State, so they take it back. They do it again, and the guy muffs the punt, and Georgia State recovers again, and they called a holding.
What?
And then finally they kick it off, and he returns it, and they get it at like the 50-yard line. So I'm looking out, and there was he muffed another punt later. They also they missed an extra point. They went for 2 and didn't get it. So I'm thinking special teams. Hopefully Army will screw up a couple times and Western can capitalize. But Western special teams were really good last week. So that's one thing, that a little key to the game that may not show up, but I'm thinking it's a good matchup for the Tops, and I think we can take them.
Well, I'll tell you, the money line spread is 7, and I'm sure that's
Okay.
going to get bigger. But they've got Army at a 6.5 point favorite right now. Now, like you said, they played Georgia State, but this is what kills me. Georgia State only had 48 rushing yards.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's tough to win that way.
Well, bad part is Western allowed 200 rushing yards and 195 passing.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of those is good. But like we were talking about, Army will run it down your throat every time, and then all of a sudden, when you're still going, okay, they're going to run it again. They're going to throw it over your head and try and score.
Mm-hmm. And they can actually throw now. That's the
yes,
concern.
and they can throw.
They actually
and they can
have
complete
a
it.
arm. So, hey guys, I got to pop off, but it was good to pop in for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm glad your mic worked. Yeah.
Hey, that there technology, man. I tell you what, that Jared Rosdeutscher or however you say his name, man. I tell you what, he knows what he's doing.
We're going to have to get him on the Twitter for Westerns football. Sounds good, though.
Yes. All right, y'all. We'll see you.
See
you, man.
Tops. Bye.
Jared, what are your thoughts about next week? Or this Saturday, sorry.
Well, I mean, I saw we finally were able to light up the scoreboard again. And I was like, it's about darn time because last year it was so painful. Like the ball never went through the air. I think Zappy had as much yards as Pigram did in his whole career at Western, throwing it just one game. But yeah, I was feeling decent about Army because if you think back to 2019, we played them in the Houch. And we beat them 17-8. It was probably one of the most boring live football games I've been to in person. But it was a beautiful defensive show from Western. Like the fact that we only held Army to 8 points and we were completely shutting down their triple option that entire time. Like we had them figured out and we did really well. That was the year we went 9-4 into Hilton's first year. But this year, I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you, I did my Q&A with one of the Army guys. His name is Alex, and he runs the blog. Well, he did. It's mostly just a Twitter account now called Inside and Outside Army. And I was feeling good before I talked to him. But ever since I've talked to him and saw his answers to my questions, I am concerned.
So
I'm greatly concerned.
So let's get a little preview for our listeners. Let's have a little tidbit. What are some of that you're looking at?
Well, they have this running back that's like 6'1", 245 that can run 20 miles an hour. Like this dude is quick. He's big. He's a big body to take care of. And also just the depth that they have, like Matt already mentioned. Like they use like 3 different quarterbacks because they just run that triple option so often. And the thing is they don't just use the same people. Like they can go like 4, 5, almost 6 players deep with that triple option just to make sure that they have fresh legs, just to keep running it down your throat. So, and it's just the fact that we gave up over 200 yards to UT Martin on the ground. Like that plus a team that all they do is run is not a very good recipe for us unless we can turn things around really quick. Because, I mean, at least Coach Helton, he knew then in 2019 how to stop Army's run. And granted, Army wasn't as good that year. They were supposed to be, and one of their best players got hurt. Like they could have been a top 25 team in 2019 when we played them, but they had a bunch of injuries that kept them from really taking off. But this season, they're loaded. Like he said that their defense is really solid, especially their secondary. Like he said, this is about as good of a secondary as they've ever had. And of course, like you were saying, like if we can keep scoring 50 to 60 points, then we can just outscore everybody. But if we're not able to stop their running and they score every other possession on the ground, and then they have a very strong secondary that might be able to pick apart Zappy a lot, then I see this potentially being a very difficult game for us just because of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. My big takeaway here is looking at last week's win for Army against Georgia State is Army had the ball for over 42 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think too. My thing is you got to think too, how gassed is the defense? How exhausted are they?
Yeah, because I mean, if they're going to be switching people out on offense, they're going to be fresh. But I don't know how much we're going to be able to switch people out on defense and still be able to keep up.
Does Army run the no huddle, or are they just do they huddle every time? Do you remember?
Um, I don't
I
know.
really
I don't.
didn't watch this year, so I don't
Yeah, I
know.
didn't get to see the game against Georgia State, but usually they still huddle. But they, of course, obviously line up, like have the wing backs, full backs, all that old school stuff that's been around for 100 years. But you know
Yeah,
what? They're still pretty darn good at it, so it's kind of
yeah,
hard to still figure out.
yeah. You can't really make fun of them when they're doing what works for them. And if I remember right, doesn't Georgia or sorry, we got a little talk here because I was trying to. There we go. Sorry, I had a clip of Army coming up. But Army is the team that does that whole analysis play thing, right?
What do
You
you?
remember? You know what I'm talking about? Where they've got some kind of computer that tells them this is the best play to run or something.
Oh,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
that sounds like something they would use. They probably have some Area 51 technology that they use on their sidelines. That's why they beat us.
Well, that's what they use like genetic cloning to get the right kids in there.
Like they just
Um,
find someone like Derrick Henry and take like a DNA sample and just like spawn
yes,
like 50 of him in a lab in Area 51, and that's what they make their team out of.
they got like Reggie Bush guys, and they're like, all right, let's take Reggie Bush's DNA and fuse it with Herschel Walker and some other guys. Um,
That's
well,
probably all under the tables, of course.
oh yeah, of course, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, honestly, I remember when we played Navy. Navy was one of those teams that they did practice at like 4 in the morning. At 6 in the morning, they had to go do their PT for their regular, stuff. And I'm sure Army's the same way. So
Oh
these
yeah.
dudes are going to be running all the time, and they're all going to be in shape from the slowest lineman to the fastest wide receiver. They're going to be in shape.
I mean, just look at the ROTC program at Western. Like, I would
Yes,
be getting to campus like at 7 o'clock, and I'd still be seeing all of them running up the hill full speed from the bottom of the hill up to the top, and just do that all over campus. I'm just like, how? How do you all do
yes,
this? It's
yes,
insane.
yes. It's wild. I mean, but it's going to be a tough game. I'm not going to count Western out because, like I said, the spread's only 6.5, and their only real opponent that they played is Georgia State. So I'm not counting Western out, but it's going to be a tough game. I agree with you and Matt. We definitely have to shore up our running game, but I think you gotta gas their defense just as much as they're going to gas ours. You got to
Mhm.
get their D linemen running and everything, and hope our guys are just as able to stay with them.
Yeah, I think our run game is going to be the biggest deciding factor in this. If we're able to do anything on the ground at all, that just to help Zappy out a little bit, I think that's going to be really helpful. But I mean, if we're just going to the air every single time, then maybe hit him with a draw play or something like that. I mean, that could be effective. But after seeing how we did containing the rush against UT Martin, I'm just kind of concerned
I
because this
agree.
isn't this isn't the same Army team that we played in 2019 either. They've loaded up on a bunch of different key positions that they needed. I mean, Jeff Monken, he's a great coach. I'm sure he'll make the adjustments that he needs to on defense to try to be ready for that passing stuff that Zappy's going to do. But and then, of course, like the thing we haven't even mentioned yet is the fact that it's on the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
Yes.
So and that's another thing that Alex told me too with Inside and Outside Army is that not only is just the September 11th terrorist attacks a big important day for Army, but also I think it was 5 years ago they had one of their best players on defense that passed away in a car accident, which was also on September 11th, and they
Oh
always
my
have a
gosh.
special tribute for him as well. So it's definitely an emotional day for them, and yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but just like the American in me, like if we actually beat Army on the 20th anniversary of September 11th, I'll feel kind of bad.
I'm not going to feel bad, but I do agree. I think you gotta separate it, Jared. You can't just associate it with it. But we will be at West
I
Point, New York,
know.
playing them,
Yeah.
so it'll be a little different.
It's going to be
They're
a really interesting home environment for sure. Like I haven't really seen anything from Army as far as like what kind of uniforms that they'll have or like any type of special tributes. I don't know if like even President Biden could be there. I mean, that's something we don't even know either. I mean, that's how big of a
No.
deal that this is going to be for the anniversary of 9/11. I mean, we don't know
Dude,
what.
our luck, he's going to like Navy or something or Air Force. You know how that goes.
I mean, last time we did something in front of a president was with Obama and the British Prime Minister back in basketball, and that was the most ugly game I'd ever seen. We were down like 18 points, with like 5 minutes left, and we still come back and won that game, which is
Hey, that's
still,
all. That's all. Hey, it doesn't matter. There's no
yeah.
asterisk beside the game that said it was ugly or clean, so it's all good.
But God, that was painful to watch.
Um,
I'll never forget that.
the matchup predictor on ESPN's got Army at a 76. I think that's fair because they're saying that basically 7 out of 10 times Army's going to win. I would like to see that a little lower. I'd like to see Army at like a 60%, but it's going to be a tough game. I hope Zap shows up. Like you said, I'd like the run game's going to be key on both sides of the ball. Definitely going to have the tackles containing the dive. Corner's going to have to contain the pitch man. I mean, we're going to have to run it back in to the other guys, to the other defenders. That sounds old, but anyway. And like you said, I mean, we have to be versatile because you want that defense saying, you know, either on their heels or on their toes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're throwing, you want them on their toes, and they're going to be running forward instead of back, and vice versa. So, I think it's going to be a good game, though. I think hopefully it'll be a good game.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a blowout or anything like that.
I hope not, unless it's in our favor.
Yes, if it's our favor, I'm all good.
And also, Russ will be there as well. He's actually taking the trip up to West Point, so he'll get some good pictures and videos and other stuff for us. Hopefully. So
Cool. That was one place I did not get to go. Was when we played Army. I think Army played us at home, and we played Navy. Was the other one, but I did get to make the trip to Annapolis, and it's really pretty. Really pretty campus and everything up there. With the midshipmen, the goats.
Oh yeah.
So, I guess the last thing we kind of got here, I will reserve my prediction for the Towrax article. But Jared, where were you 20 years ago on 9/11?
Oh wow. Yeah.
You were like 3, right?
Well, I mean, the fact that you think I was still alive is more than you normally would say, which is crazy. Half the people I work with now are born like after 2000, 2001. Just like y'all are a bunch of children, literally.
Yes.
But I was in second grade, and I was still in the same house that I'm in now. And we have these woods, and right across the woods is the school that I went to. It was one of the elementary schools in Franklin. And I would actually walk home from school. Usually that wasn't unusual unless it was raining or something. Then my mom would pick me up. But on a pretty day, I'd just walk home. There was a little ditch beside the road, and one of the bus drivers, I knew who he was. He'd always throw me a piece of bubble gum too as I would walk home. So of course I always wanted to do that. Obviously. But I mean, it was just like any other day. They didn't say anything about what was going on in the school. I mean, I didn't really notice anything from my teachers, like if they were emotional. I mean, I was just a kid hanging out, having fun, recess, all of that. But usually I would walk home by myself and then just come home and wait for my mom to get home. I think because I think my dad would be home. I can't remember. Their work schedules have changed like a million times, so I can't really remember that. But one thing that I thought was unusual is that my mom met me at the edge of the woods. So I was like, usually she never comes to like go walk with me or whatever. But and so what she did is that she, like on the walk home, is she kind of explained to me what all was going on. That way I would be prepared, because obviously it was all over the news. I mean, you could turn it on anything. It was on every station just about. And the way that she conducted it to me was talking about, like, I'm sure you've seen the Home Alone movies, like the Christmas movies. The second one, Lost in New York, one of the things that Kevin does by himself is that he goes to the top of the World Trade Centers in one scene in the movie. And that's kind of how she made that connection, is because I had known that movie my whole life, obviously. And like talking about like the World Trade Centers, like those buildings that he went to, like they're not there anymore. Like there was planes that crashed into them. Like that was the biggest thing. I mean, of course, the Pentagon still happened. Of course, the one that
Yeah.
they took down in Pennsylvania. I mean, it was just so much craziness happening. And I mean, I remember coming home and seeing it on the news and just trying my best to like understand like this is real. I mean, this isn't like a movie. This isn't a TV show. Like this is real life. This is like people, thousands of people losing their life. And I mean, just the gravity of that. I mean, even now it's still hard to talk about because I mean, how do you tell kids that? Because I mean, imagine your daughter's 8 years old and she sees something like that happening. Like, how do you explain that to her in terms that she would be able to fully understand, like the gravity of
It's
the
hard to, yeah.
situation? Yeah, I mean, the only person that could do it was Fred Rogers, like Mr. Rogers. Like, I still absolutely adore that man to death. I mean, the way he, like, I think he was still active too. Like, he passed in 2003. So he talked
Yeah.
about September 11th. I'm sure the way that he described it to kids was like in terms that they could understand. But of course, I mean, most parents don't know. But I mean, I just remember watching it and it was scary. I mean, because I mean, even though I knew I lived in the middle of nowhere, so I felt like I was safe. I didn't feel like there was going to be something bad to happen here or maybe even Nashville because I mean we live close to Nashville, but yeah,
No,
I
you're
mean,
like 40, 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes from there, though. But yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I was definitely concerned, but I remember just the fallout of it. I mean, just how long it took for them to just pick up all of the pieces from Manhattan. God, that took months. Like how long it took for them to do that. And of course, like I think it was a couple of days afterwards is like basically on our town square, we had like over 1,000 people show up to just a candlelight vigil that we had for all the people that were lost in the attacks and just having that moment of silence and just being reflective of that. I mean, that times were so much simpler back then. I mean, you hate for something like that to happen, but the unity that our country had after that, I haven't seen again since we had that. And especially
No.
now with the political turmoil we have with COVID and how divisive a pandemic has been for people, like it's hard for us just to agree on being American anymore, which is sad. And 9/11, that's something I'll always remember from that is that it didn't matter like what ills you had with your neighbor or if someone was a liberal or a conservative, like you just join hands with them and just hurt. And I mean, as painful as that was, I mean, just the unity out of that was one of the greatest things that I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. There were 2,996 deaths on 9/11.
Yeah.
Um, there is you're talking about the divisiveness. There's a great documentary out on Netflix, and it talks about how social media has created echo chambers for people and how politics has become so polarized. But yes, I mean, I agree 100%. 9/11 was one of those things that um, if you were alive at that time, you remember where you were when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was in Coach Carter's American History 8th grade class. So I wasn't in 2nd grade, I was in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our other teachers, I can't think of her name, ran into his room, opened the door, and said, "Turn on the news." And we stayed in our class for, I think we did periods, is what they used to call them.
Yeah.
And he had 8 periods in a day. We stayed in there till I think lunch, and then I think they turned us over to the whatever I think 4th or 5th period class that was. I don't think it hit. I don't think it hit home right away what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was kind of in shock about what was going on because it was like, what is this? Where is this? Of course, I'm on the other side of the classroom from where the TV was, so like I just wasn't making the connection about what's going on, and it didn't really hit home to me until I went to football practice that afternoon, and like my coaches were so emotional.
Mm-hmm.
They're yelling and screaming and talking about, wanting to go whoop some ass and blah, 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 blah. And,
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, what in the heck is going on? And they're like, with what happened in New York. And then I think it just kind of all clicked and it was like, oh. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the greatest things I ever saw was it's a short little clip on YouTube. Well, it's not short, but it's probably about 10 minutes. And it talks about the largest movement of people by boat happened on 9/11. The largest one before that was Dunkirk.
Mm-hmm.
But in New York, when the attacks happened, all these people are trying to get off Manhattan Island, and they've shut all the bridges and everything down. So no one can get off the island. So literally people start, people on tugboats, people who do little cruise tours and, all these other different boat people, they start bringing their boats to Manhattan and they start taking people back to the mainland.
Mm-hmm.
And it's watch it. It's really cool. It's one of those that you just, it's like you want to get your flag, your American flag out and start waving it around because it's a very proud moment for our country because you get to see, it didn't matter what race you were, what, male, female, whatever sex you are, whatever. It didn't matter anything. It was, these are my people. These are Americans. And we're going to get them out of there. We're going to get them safe.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you said, it was one of those things that I think a lot of kids, like the ones you work with, don't realize what was going on, what happened.
They read about it in history books now. Like it's not something that they remember or they experienced, which is crazy because like when we experienced it, like just how that literally changed everything. I remember being a kid and going to the Nashville airport and being so close to the runways, just seeing the planes take off. I thought that was really cool. You could go into the airport without much security and just kind of hang out and watch the planes. Of course, like obviously TSA after that has just been insane trying to go anywhere, and flights were grounded for so long. I remember being on vacation in October, the month after 9/11, and just like no chemtrails at all or anything like that. I mean, everything was grounded, like we drove, and just small things like that. And it's been crazy. I mean, it's been something we've had to live with for 20 years. It's just the horrific memories from seeing all of that. But it's at least sports related too. The one thing I remember, I'm sure you remember this too, was the Yankees game where George Bush threw out the opening pitch and it was like a strike right down the center, which I still think that is really cool because like they were wanting him not to do it because like they were scared he was going to throw some horrible pitch and then everybody won't be his height. But yeah, the sitting president threw like the perfect strike down the center. So it just added to the whole environment. That was the first Yankees game, I think, since 9/11. I know there was been a lot of stories. I think it was on ESPN. I remember seeing about that, but just stuff like that too. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, but my thing is too is what people may not realize is that Bush owned the Texas Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's one of those that you really want to be like, for the love of God, can you not throw a strike? Like as long as he didn't throw like a 50-cent throw and hit a photographer,
yeah,
that should be all right. But yeah, I mean, I may catch flack for this, but as a person, I liked George W. Bush.
And I mean, as a kid too, I mean, he was the president during like so many of our biggest disasters, like 9/11 and then Hurricane Katrina. I mean, obviously, I mean, there were things he probably should have done differently, but I mean, he was still the person that got us through all of that. So, I mean,
and it's like you said, it's kind of one of those that you're just like, I think every president has that though, where it's like, hey, I wish, you wish you could take back that shot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? You wish you could redo something. Well, if I'd have done this differently, maybe it'd have been better or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I still remember watching the TV when he addressed the nation that night on September 11th and was talking about everything too.
Dude, I still remember when he got the call in the classroom.
Yes, that as well.
Seeing his face, his face said it all, and it's just like, ugh. And
I've seen so many documentaries too since then that I think that they flew him around up in the air for a few hours just to make sure that he was safe and nothing was going to happen where he was at, like just keeping him up in Air Force One.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of documentaries.
Well, Cheney, I think, was in a bunker, God knows where.
Yeah,
And
probably.
Cheney was in a bunker, and then they had
Hopefully not with a gun.
no, God no. Well, hey, you know what? He'd have probably been safe if he did. But
Oh,
now the
dear.
Secret Service probably wouldn't have been safe. But
Yeah.
anyway, no, they they had him in the air. They had Cheney, God knows where, in a bunker somewhere, because they had no idea like how far everything stretched, and it's just,
Hmm.
I mean, looking back on it, it's wild. But you're talking about things you remember. I was probably about the same age as you were when the Oklahoma City bombing happened.
Oh, yeah.
I remembered walking into my grandparents' house because I rode the school bus with my grandfather, and turned on the TV to watch Power Rangers or whatever was on Fox that at that point, Fox cartoons, Fox Kids, I think is what they called it, and turned it on, and the news is on, and they're showing the pictures of the side of the building, the firefighters carrying the kids. Like I still remember that stuff.
Hmm.
And as a kid, of course, I was frustrated as a kid. It's like, hey, where are my cartoons?
I was too. I turned it on Cartoon Network at one point because I got like it was on every single channel. I was like, well, I bet it's not on Cartoon Network, and I turned it over there, and it's like Ed, Ed, and Eddie or something. I was watching it.
Oh my gosh, those were great back in the day.
Hmm.
But yes, check out the Army Navy game. That is going to be Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Is it 10:30 Central?
Yeah, it's gonna be an early
That's
kickoff.
an early kickoff. But it's supposed to be nice weather, so if you're in the area, watch the game. If not, I think it's on CBS Sports Network.
Yeah,
You
I'll
can check
actually
it
get to
there.
see some of it before I go to work, working all
There you
day
go.
Saturday. So thankfully,
Yeah.
I'll finally get to see a half of football, college football.
But anyway, yeah, check that out. Volleyball's playing, soccer's playing. I'm sure they're playing somebody. I don't have it in front of me right now. But I guess the challenge I would put up for everybody is be nice to your neighbors. Doesn't
Hmm.
care. Who cares about politics? It don't
Yeah,
matter. They don't care about you. That's the big
yeah.
thing to take away from that.
Hmm.
Joe Biden, Donald Trump, none of them give a shit about you,
Yeah,
but your neighbor might. So,
yeah.
um,
You'll meet your neighbor. You won't meet a sitting president, more than likely.
I was going to say they might. Somebody might.
Well, I mean, depending on how up you are. Andy Bashir, if you're listening to this, I apologize.
uh, but hey, check back here next week. We'll be talking the preview, recapping the Army game and previewing the next. Follow the Towel Rack. They've got all their articles coming out. We're going to have previews for the game, and then they'll have recaps for the game and doing live tweets during the game. So if you can't see the game, if you might be at work, then check back. You'll be able to see what they're talking about, what's going on. But as always, guys, go Tops.
Go Tops.